Eternals, as of this recording, is the latest entry to the MCU, and the first among them to get a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes, even though I thought Thor the Dark World had beat them to it. But why is Eternals a failure? They've done movies with numerous protagonists successfully before. The Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy films have all been hits at the box office, and for the most part have been well received. They've done obscure characters before, just this year in fact. Shang-Chi was a hit, but Eternals just doesn't seem to be resonating with people like that did. Were people not ready for a female led Marvel movie? Were they scared of seeing a gay man on screen? Well, if you ignore the successes of films like Wonder Woman, Atomic Blonde, Alita Battle Angel, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Captain Marvel, then yeah, I can see why you might think it's the former. As for the latter, yeah, that did hurt them. In Saudi Arabia. Well, if it's not prejudice, then could it be that people are growing tired of Marvel movies? Well, some are, that's true. But Shang-Chi was the largest box office success since the virus that shall not be named. So that's not it. Then what happened? Now stay with me. I'm about to say something radical, but I think it might just be the answer. Sit down, hold a stuffed animal or blanket or loved one tight, okay? You ready? Here goes. Maybe, just maybe, Eternals wasn't a particularly good movie. Characters just do what the plot needs them to. There's a good 15 minutes of the film that simply doesn't need to exist. Yet it feels like there's missing scenes and dialogue. Also, one of the twists makes no sense. And I can't really get into it without spoiling the whole film. So, click off if you want to watch the most skippable film in the MCU since The Incredible Hulk unspoiled. To critique this film best, I'll need to give you the plot summary. So I'll do that and I'll address the issues as they come up. We start out with the Eternals arriving on Earth and showing off their abilities while taking down their sworn enemies, the Deviants. They're sent by the celestial Arishem, who's basically God. Before they land, we see them awaken and introduce themselves to each other, as they have no memory of each other before then. We then cut to thousands of years later. They've gone their separate ways and are quietly living their lives. Deviants are believed to be dead. Now they simply wait for Arishem to allow their return to their homeworld, Olympia. Cersei, our protagonist, works as a teacher. We are introduced to her boyfriend, played by Jon Snow himself, Kit Harington. You know, the dude who was one of the most major characters in the most popular TV show on the planet? Yeah, that guy. He has at most 10 minutes of screen time. A global earthquake erupts and inspires surprisingly little mass hysteria. One would think that a global earthquake would shake things up more. However, they do nothing. That is, until Cersei, Kit, and Sprite, no, not a sentient can of Sprite, but Sprite, her young-looking friend who's also an Eternal that lives with her, are attacked by deviants. Who are not dead somehow. And with the help of Superman, I mean Clark Kent, I mean John Kent, I mean Connor Kent, I mean Icarus, are able to fend them off. But a deviant escapes and demonstrates a healing ability that is reminiscent of the group's leader, Ajak. Cersei then explains to Kit that they were ordered not to interfere in any human conflicts. Only conflicts that involve deviants can they take part in. This is why they didn't fight Ultron and the like. We then cut to the past where we see Icarus and Cersei falling in love and then having mad sex. There's other stuff too, but really every last second of it could be cut with no consequences to the plot. There's no need for any of it. And that's one of the most annoying things any film can do. Waste the viewer's time. And that's what it does. Nothing is gained from the flashback that a simple exchange between Icarus and Cersei couldn't have done, even though we already knew they were exes from previous dialogue. They set out to find the other Eternals to get their help in facing the Deviants. They go to get their leader, Ajak, but she's dead. Like, super dead. The Deviant we saw earlier got to her. Cersei is somehow posthumously chosen by Ajak to be the leader, which also grants her the ability to commune with Arishem. And no, they never explain how or why she was chosen. They then gather up 3 more of their number. Kingu, who has made a career as a Bollywood star, and then Gilgamesh and Thena. Also, they're accompanied by Kingo's Bollywood producer friend Karun, who is filming their adventure. No, this will not come up again. In a flashback, we see their final mission together, as they destroy the last of the Deviants and Thena goes berserk. She says that they're all going to die and attacks her allies, but Gilgamesh knocks her out. We then cut to a short while later. They're in a temple in what I think it was Tenochtitlan, as the conquistadors slaughter the inhabitants. They are forbidden by Arishem for interfering, but the revelation that Athena will have to have her memories wiped to fix her bouts of madness sends the eternal Druig over the edge. The mass death, threat of his friend losing her memories, and the knowledge that he, an eternal with the ability to control minds, could stop all the fighting with just a thought, makes him abandon the others, as the rest go their separate ways, waiting for Arishem to allow them to return to their home world. Cutting back to the present, Cersei speaks with Gilgamesh about her inability to contact Arishem. He offers a bit of advice, and then she communes with the Celestial. Arishem then reveals to her the true nature of the Eternals and their mission. They are to make sure there is as much sentient life as possible, in this case, human life, for as long as possible, and the collective energy the humans create over their many years will allow a new Celestial to be born. The Celestial will then go on to create billions of stars, planets, and life. The only consequence is that it would result in the destruction of Earth. I need you to remember this fact. Earth dies when Celestial is born. Celestial makes unfathomable amount of lives. You got that tucked away now? Good. He also explains that the Deviants are a creation of his, and that they were meant to destroy the apex predators of Earth so intelligent life could properly develop. But they evolved and went rogue. They were eating people and therefore preventing the needed energy from being generated. In light of that development, the Eternals were created. They are basically hyper-advanced robots, and that's why they don't age. He needed beings that were incapable of evolution to prevent them from going rogue. He then sent the Eternals to get rid of the Deviants and oversee the world's development. And every time their mission is finished and a new Celestial is born, their memories are wiped, but kept in storage inside the facility that Arishem created to create them. Except for Ajak, who, being their leader, was fully aware of the full scope of their mission, and now her successor is as well. After learning all this, she decides she must prevent the death of humanity. Oh boy, that scene. Where to start? How does any of that plan work? Arishem says that every billion years a Celestial must be born. The universe is estimated to be over 13 billion years old, which is old by our standards, but that means there should be only about 13 Celestials that have been born since creation. So this plan has been seen through 13 times. Yet Arishem implies that it has been many more times, and we know for a fact that there are many more Eternals. We also know that the Deviants became a problem and the Eternals were created to counteract them. Were all these planets seeded and Deviants sent to them at the same time? If not, then how have multiple planets faced this same issue? Shouldn't he have figured out that Deviants suck? How are there so many Eternals? Are there multiple Celestials being born at the same time? If yes, how is that not causing mass panic at all times? If no, then why are there so many Eternals? And if yes, wouldn't that many discount gods start causing problems? Wouldn't they inevitably either mess up one of those creations or go to war? What would a celestial war be like? Can I watch that movie instead? That sounds a lot cooler than whatever this movie is doing. Oh, did you think the problems with this scene were over? Wrong. They don't even justify erasing the Eternals' memories. Seriously. Even if keeping billions of years of memory is too much for their hard drives or something, why not just give them key memories that would ensure loyalty? And if Cersei is rebelling, isn't that in of itself proof that Eternals are capable of evolution? If he means Darwinian evolution, are the Eternals sterile? If that's the case, then how have they not noticed? You really mean to tell me that 10 people who have lived for thousands of years haven't once gotten suspicious? Really? They at no point tried for kids. Really? Not once. Arishem's plan makes no sense. The amount of Eternals makes no sense. Wiping memories makes no sense. It's all dumb and illogical. There's a little more I could say about this scene, but I think it's best I just move on. Cersei then shares this revelation with the others, and they decide that they can't just let all of humanity die. They then go to find Druig, who has been living with a remote tribe in the Amazon as their protector. He initially refuses to help them, but after an attack by the Deviants that ends with Gilgamesh's death, Cersei gaining the ability to alter organic matter in addition to her ability to alter inorganic matter, and the Deviants' numbers dwindling to just the one who killed Ajak and Gilgamesh, who now has the ability to speak and plot after absorbing the latter's power. After a funeral for their fallen friend, Druig joins them to retrieve the last two, Phastos and Makari. Phastos is now living with his husband and son, as it helped him regain his faith in humanity after he lost it during the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And no, this does not come up again. Yet another pointless flashback. He is hesitant to leave his family, but his husband convinces him it's worth it if it means watching their son grow up. They arrive at their ship, where Makari has been for the last several hundred years. And no, I have no clue why she stayed there. They never explain it. Phastos comes up with a plan to stop the Celestial's birth, which they call the Emergence. If the Eternals use their collective energy, they can create something called the Unimind, merging their thoughts as one for a brief time. And Druig can use his mind control powers to put the Celestial to sleep so they can stage a planetary evacuation. However, it's at this moment we learn of Icarus's treachery. Many years ago, Ajax revealed their true nature to him, so he left Cersei, as he knew she'd try to stop it, and he wouldn't be able to resist telling her if he stayed. Despite finding all this out, somehow, his loyalty to Arishem never waned. So, 6 days prior to our present, when Ajax told him she wanted to unite with the others to stop the Emergence, he decided to show her something he'd found. Deviants, who had been frozen in the ice, were escaping from it thanks to the added heat caused by the beginning of the Emergence. He threw her off a cliff and into their clutches, and they quickly ended her life. He then brought her corpse back to her home so that he could find her dead when they arrived. Also, he let out a heat vision blast in a fit of rage and sorrow at his actions, and yet they never noticed the scarring it had left on the land when they found her. This could have been a great setup. He could have become suspicious to the others when he acted surprised at her death, despite the fact that scarring that is in line with the kind his heat vision produces was there. Another problem with the scene is that they showed us that the Eternals had tracked down what they believed were the last deviants, and thought they succeeded in eliminating their enemy. At no point is it explained how the deviants in the ice escaped their notice. A simple passing comment about how excessive amounts of cold or water messes with their ability to track the deviants would have sufficed. But we were never shown how they tracked the deviants, or if they were given a specific number to defeat. So we have no idea why they thought their mission was over. Icarus proceeds to attack the others and warn them to stay away. Sprite ends up siding with Icarus due to her unrequited love for him, which we saw mentioned precisely once before by Kingu. Sprite and Icarus leave to watch over the part of the Earth that the Celestial named Tiamat will emerge from, while Kingu abandons the others. Minutes prior, he had told Icarus he'd follow wherever he led. And even though he'd found out Icarus murdered their mutual friend, he told the others that while he's not willing to fight his friends, he will not help them either. Not if it's against Icarus. Which doesn't make any sense. He is accompanied by his close friend from Bollywood, Karun, for the duration of the film, but he apparently is just willing to let his beloved friend die instead of siding with Icarus, even though his initial motivation was to save the Earth he'd grown to love. They fight the Icarus as the Emergence begins, and despite claiming that he's the most powerful and that they don't stand a chance against him, Makari and Phastos do a pretty decent job of slowing him down, though it comes at the cost of the apparent death of Druig. Athena, meanwhile, confronts the deviant who killed Ajax and Gilgamesh and ends his life, but is too worn now to make much of a difference against Sprite and Icarus. Cersei journeys on to attempt to use her newfound powers to kill Tiamat, but is injured by Sprite, who pours out her heart about her pain as being someone who is so old, yet still looks like a child, and can never have the kind of life Cersei has due to this. Druig then bludgeons her with a rock. He tells Cersei it's up to her now, even though he's in seemingly a lot better shape than her. Cersei begins to turn Tiamat to marble, but it's at this time when that Icarus finally overpowers Makari and Phastos and comes to kill her. But his love for her makes him finally give in, and the Unimind is formed. With its power, they kill Tiamat and save the world. Grief-stricken and guilt-ridden, Icarus flies into the sun, which is a pity, as having a character who has betrayed everyone he's ever loved or been loyal to journeying out into the stars to find his way could have made for a far more interesting story than his symbolic suicide did. Sprite asks if he's truly gone, to which Cersei replies yes. She then offers to turn Sprite human with the leftover power she has, which will allow her to live the life she's wanted, but will render her as mortal as any man. She accepts without hesitation. Another missed opportunity. They could have shown her refusing, deciding that she violated her right to such a life when she betrayed all of humanity, or perhaps she regretted her decision and now lived with the dread of growing old and senile. And no, they don't explain why she couldn't have just had her appearance altered instead of becoming human, which would let her keep her agelessness, but also let her live the life she wants. She gets no real arc. She had an argument with Kingu about why he left her alone, and he said he did so because he was tired of moving every 5 years so people didn't question why she wasn't aging. Then he mentions later her feelings for Icarus, but they don't give her arc a meaningful resolution. She doesn't grow or change, nor is this set up at all. She is heartbroken at the loss of Ajak, and when she found out Icarus was her killer and got Gilgamesh killed, she still inexplicably sided with him. And she's really the only one who went through an arc other than Icarus. Everyone else was pretty much the same person they were from the beginning, and they're just not interesting enough to carry this movie without any arcs. One of the worst examples is Makari. She's a mute who loves Druig and is pretty nice. That's all there is to her. Remove her love interest, remove her disability, and all you have left is a kind and nice chick. We find out she had been hiding on their ship this entire time, just reading and the like, and yet this hasn't changed her. She doesn't tend to isolate herself, she just did. She doesn't even seem fazed by the fact that she's been alone for the entirety of mankind's living memory. She's completely the same as she was in the flashbacks. Thankfully, we'll soon be sending her and the rest of the characters off. In the final scenes, we see her, Druig, and Thena depart to tell the other Eternals the truth, while Phastos, Cersei, Kingu, and Sprite remain on Earth. Sprite finds a school to go to, and is somehow still on relatively good terms with Cersei and Kingu, despite her attempt to kill the former. Phastos returns to his family. But this is not where our story ends. It's a Phase 4 Marvel movie, which means a sequel tease must come before the film's done. Kit Harington and Cersei are reunited, and he prepares to share with her a recently learned family secret, but she, Kingu, and Phastos are dragged into space by the recently arrived Arishem, who plans to use their memories to judge whether or not Earth deserves to survive. He then warps them all away, leaving Kit confused and desperate. And no, they don't explain why Kingu, who did not fight against Icarus and Sprite, nor voluntarily or even on screen join the Unimind, was taken. We then get a few post-credit scenes. First, Harry Styles, who is partnered with Patton Oswalt. Eros/Star Fox, brother of Thanos, and his sidekick Pip the Troll, find Druig, Makari, and Thena, and tell them the others are in trouble, and they know how to find them. We then get our last scene, with Kit Harington remembering that he really likes swords and is about to make use of a long-hidden family heirloom, the Ebony Blade, presumably to help Cersei, when he's asked if he's ready for it by Blade. No, not the Blade itself, but Blade, the vampire hunter. According to Wikipedia, we don't actually see him. Now that I've finally wrapped up the plot, I can get into possibly the biggest problem of the movie. Whether or not it's moral to kill a being who will kill billions and then create billions more, and their refusal to answer the question. Although they do give a passing comment saying that killing some to save more always leads down the wrong path, they don't ever explore the idea further. They question if what they did was right, but they never come to a conclusion. Yes, a movie can pose a question and give multiple or complicated answers, or leave it up to us to decide. But this question is a bit too big in universe to not answer. Some possible answers could be that there has to be another way, that a system taking lives to create more is no way to go about reproduction. If they made a comparison between the scientific success and advancements found in horrible German ruling party during World War II, and that while many lives had been saved thanks to what we learned from them, the evils of such torture were far too great to ever be justified, then we could get an understanding, an effective answer that ties into Phastos' experience in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But we never get that. We're just supposed to cheer on their killing a god that intends creation, that would have brought about incomprehensible amounts of life. This is a genuinely interesting question, one that I wish they'd explored more, but they don't. They could have used the unique perspectives that they had gained over their years apart to present the different sides of the issue. Again, Phastos was a perfect candidate for a character to wrestle with such a question. Outside of Icarus, I guess? Nobody goes through any noteworthy arc in the film. Most of them end in seconds if they happen at all. Phastos gives up on humans, then we instantly see him as a proud patriarch. Druig is haunted by his ability to stop all wars and his being ordered not to, yet he gets over it off screen. He only offers a stereotypical, their flaws are what make them human argument, and somehow that makes him feel better. Spry is just given exactly what she wants. Yeah, she apologizes and shows genuine remorse after her betrayal, but her sudden transition to villain was underdeveloped, and when Cersei turned her human, she was essentially rewarded for it. Eternals is one of the most gorgeous films in the MCU, with Arishem looking especially great. He's voiced by David Kaye, which, as a lifelong Transformers fan, I was extremely pleased to learn. The performances are solid enough, but the unnecessary scenes, lack of character development, nonsensical backstory, and inability to answer the film's big question meaningfully makes this film pretty forgettable. It barely has a place in the MCU. Truly, if you changed maybe 5 pieces of dialogue, the film not only would have no connective tissue to the rest of the films, but also would work better. They make statements that contradict the events of other films, and you just can't help but wonder where the Avengers are. Why wouldn't Doctor Strange have come to face Tiamat when his hand was literally reaching out to the clouds? Maybe they'll explain it later. But it's a common problem in the MCU that they don't meaningfully address here. Black Widow and Shang-Chi were able to avoid this issue, but not Eternals. Because of the lack of connective tissue to the other films, the generic sci-fi feel of the movie, philosophical questions that are apparently too big for the screenwriters to answer, and the unsatisfactory ending, it's no surprise that this film struggles as much as it does critically, and is the first MCU film since The Incredible Hulk that I expect to be forgotten. With all that being said, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed, please like, comment, subscribe, whatever equivalent you have on whatever platform you've got. And this is GW wishing you good night, good day, and good friggin' bye.